All right, folks, it is the second to last video of the year, the regular season at least. It's the final Oscar winners prediction video. And, from Sunday night from the SAGs and from some of the other last award shows here in the last couple weeks, in the last, I'd say, 24, 36 hours or so, I've kind of racked my brain a little bit, been like, okay, where do I want to go? Where does the decision land as far as who's going to win where and stuff? And I think I finally landed on, okay, I think I figured out who's all going to win what and everything. So it's an atmosphere, though, I think, this year where we have to be comfortable being uncomfortable while watching the show this year, if we want to throw that phrase out there. We're just in a space where it's like, I kind of mentioned it a little bit Sunday there, we just have to be a little comfortable with the fact that we don't know everything coming into this award show, especially for some of the top categories. It's really just going to be a very interesting night. I think some of these categories, as soon as they're announced, it's going to be like, okay, we're either, with our own personal predictions, we're either going to be dead on, we're going to be like, yes, we got it right in a tricky year, or we're going to be like, oh, it's the other scenario, or one of the other various scenarios that could have played out through this. So, some of the other, some categories when we get to the top, the last categories like Best Director, Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, so on and so forth, those I'll take some more time on, and I'll kind of discuss the back and forth a little bit of where I was and what I'm currently thinking and everything. So that all being said, I'm going to go ahead and start with the shorts and give predictions there. For live action short, I'm going to go with The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent. This has kind of been my pick from once the nominations were announced. It was kind of an early feeling I had, just given the title, ever since the shortlist came out, and I think Anuja, with the star power behind his creators, has a chance to upset. I have that in second place, but The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent, for those Oscar voters, and there are plenty out there every year, who don't have time to get to the shorts or deliberately don't do the shorts but decide to vote on all the categories anyway, and they kind of blind vote, just pick the title they think sounds the best. This one sounds important. From what I understand, it's a very important subject matter, obviously to the filmmakers and those that are passionate about it. So, I think it's definitely one that, once you have enough passion there, then you could easily win a category like that. Documentary short, kind of off the same basis there. I Am Ready, Warden seems to be the front runner here, and I haven't really heard too much dissension on it since the shortlist came out and since the nominations were announced. So I've got that one to win that category. In animated short, I'm going against the trend here just a little bit with Wander to Wonder to win. Just won at BAFTA, and that was happening while the voting was still going. We had a few days left with voting. And it's one of those, I heard even before the nominations were announced, it was kind of one of those films that had some passion behind it. So I've heard some surge for Yuck and Beautiful Men, but I don't know. I get a slight feeling that those two might just offset, and that leaves something like Wander to Wonder as the winner in that category. For visual effects, I have Dune Part 2 winning. I think this is... of the tech categories, this is one of the easier ones, I think. It's the most obvious place to award Dune, I think, without, way too much competition. Sure, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes did win at the Visual Effects Society, but every time an Apes film has won there in the last decade plus, they have then failed to go on to win at the Oscars. And I really, with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the box office and critical reception down from the entirety of the last trilogy, with Matt Reeves doing two of them, and... forget who did the first one, but not Matt Reeves. I just get the feeling it's like, why would they go to Planet of the Apes now and not then? It just doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. Best Sound is up next, and with this one, I was tempted to stick with A Complete Unknown. That did win one of the audio guilds, the Cinema Audio Guilds, as I recall, which is more of the sound mixing heavy guild, won one of their top prizes, but I think the popularity of Wicked is going to be enough to bring this one along for the ride. So I have Wicked winning for Best Sound. Dune Part 2 won this category at BAFTA. It's, the first Dune won this category as well. So it's obviously still in play there, but I don't know. I kind of like Wicked's chances there. Best Makeup and Hairstyling. This is turned into a little bit of an easier category. The substance, I think, is way ahead on this one. And I, at a couple points, I was thinking maybe something like Wicked could take over, but on a, if it can maybe not totally sweep, but do some, get a good sweep going in some of these tech categories, just didn't turn out to be the case this year. To the music categories now, Best Original Song, I have to go with El Mal from Emilia Perez. Even though, yes, Emilia Perez, still we see some people down on it and stuff. Personally, I'm still in the mode that there's not really a clear alternative here. Like, we don't have a lot of passion for the Elton John song. Despite Diane Warren nominated here again for the 688, I don't think that there's a lot of passion there for that. It's just, yep, they just nominated her. So, I don't see why El Mal would lose. Moving on to the Best Original Score category. Here I have The Brutalist winning. It won at, let me see here, BAFTA, right? I'm trying to get all these things right in my head. Yes, it won at BAFTA. It's, kind of a little bit slightly bombastic score, at times a little bit avant-garde type-ish score with some of the instrumentations and stuff. Again, I don't see a clear number 2 here. Wild Robot has some passion, but I don't think that's going to be enough for it to win. Conclave, I don't see, even if it wins Best Picture, I don't see this category coming along for the ride. I think you've got to go with The Brutalist here. Production Design is up next. Here I'm going with Wicked. I did have The Brutalist winning here for a while, but just based off of, that production design and architecture is such a big, heavy plot point in the movie and such a big part of the story that, I figured it would just, naturally go to The Brutalist. But Wicked really has not shown any weakness here. It won at BAFTA. It's pretty much got everything going for it here, so I think Wicked wins that one. Costume design, same story here, Wicked. I think this is an even more obvious one for Wicked. Again, really has not faced too much competition. You can't really, there's not really a great other effort out there as far as, who can take it down, who's the number 2 in this category, so you got to go with Wicked here again. Film editing, this is a big one. This is a big category here, because the winner of this category might just, again, be an early sign, depending on when it's announced in the award show. As I recall, film editing was kind of somewhere in the middle last year. They've kind of done a little bit of everything here in the last 2 years. They'll usually start with an acting category, a supporting category. Sometimes they'll then go to screenplay pretty quickly after that. Sometimes they'll do shorts in the middle of the pack. Sometimes they'll do them a little earlier. Some of the tech categories like makeup can be an early one. Score and song are usually toward the end, right before we get to director or actor and actress, depending on which order they want to go. So, depending on when this is in the show, again, this might be a very, very decisive category. If not, the screenplay categories will be another decisive one. But I think in this case, I gotta go with Conclave winning here. It's not like the most editing or anything, but in this year, I don't think there's really a huge candidate that's like in your face for most editing. Anora has some jarring editing that comes to your attention and and comes kind of to your face and everything. And obviously, it's one thing to remember, because some people have said, well, they don't see Sean Baker winning 4 Oscars for Anora this year and stuff. If he wins editing, that would be his 4th. Let's not forget that when we get the final voting on the ballots and stuff, when we get these below-the-line categories up to screenplay, screenplay also does not list who the Oscar recipient would be. I believe the only exception to that is the category of international feature. I think there they name the country that it's from, but I could be mistaken on that. I've heard some conflicting reports and stuff. But anyways, Anora, I think, will be close here. If Anora wins this, then I really see Conclave really having a hard time winning Best Picture if it can't win this category over Anora. So yeah. Otherwise, I think the only other one that can win here would be The Brutalist. Somehow that might come back. It's not nominated at Ace Eddie, wasn't nominated at BAFTA, didn't win at Critics' Choice. So it's like it would really be a kind of random winner. But that one would have to, it would be a really, really giant win for that movie and be like, whoa, okay, maybe this is even more competitive than we thought for the Best Picture race. But I'm not willing to to put any money on that. I'm going to go with Conclave here as the more safe pick. Anora could, again, very easily win this. And if Anora does win this, again, I see Conclave having a much, much harder time getting to a Best Picture win. For cinematography, The Brutalist, I think, will win here. Even though the Cinematographers Guild went with Maria, I don't really see that as more than just a guild thing. This is Lowcrowley, however you pronounce it, the name of the cinematographer for The Brutalist. First time nominee at ASC, or ACS, American Cinematographer Society. You got to get the acronyms right. They really usually will pick someone that they're more familiar with. That's why we don't see, and they usually, again, like cinematographers over other, that's why we see like Alfonso Cuarón win everything the year of Roma except for the Cinematographers Guild, which, as I recall, he might have not even been nominated that year. But anyways, that being said, The Brutalist won this thing at BAFTA. I don't really, even though Nosferatu won the Critics' Choice, and it's been nominated most everywhere, including the Guild, it didn't win at the Guild. Maria, this is its only nomination. It's not very common to see your cinematography winner be the sole nominee for their film. I can't even remember the last time we saw that happen. There's probably, I'd have to think that. I don't think we've had one like recently because, it's just traditionally, you get, maybe, again, like this year with Maria, sometimes you do get one, sometimes two nominees in this category where it's their only nomination, but it's not very common that those films end up winning. So anyways, I still think, though, that The Brutalist is going to win this category. To the feature categories now. International feature. This is an interesting one. And I tell you what, this one, I've been on the I'm Still Here bandwagon winning this category for a few weeks, and I just about waffled over back to Emilia Perez. I just about went back. But I considered, again, yes, even though Emilia Perez led all nominees this year with 13, yes, it's up for director, yes, it's up for screenplay. Those are two categories that I'm Still Here is not nominated for. I'm Still Here getting that picture nomination shows that there is a lot of passion for that movie. Enough that it got one of those Best Picture nominees over A Real Pain, over Sing Sing, over a couple of these other movies that were kind of vying for one of those last slots for Best Picture. And the other thing that made me end up sticking with this pick was, let's not forget that sometimes, and this is something that got pointed out to me earlier today, and it again re-solidified my confidence, that some of these voters, though, if they go through their ballots, the ones that abstain from some categories, like international feature, because they haven't seen all the nominees, sometimes for them it's a little hard to find the time to watch them and everything. If you get enough abstentions and people that don't just blindly say, oh, Emilia Perez, that's also up for Best Picture, not realizing I'm Still Here is also up for Best Picture, if you got enough of those people that don't do it, or you've got just enough people that don't like Emilia Perez, it's still got enough nominations, obviously, to lead the pack and everything, so there was enough passion there in the early voting to get the nominees in there. But that, or if you're bothered by the Carlos Sofia Gascon or some of the other controversies around the film and how it was made, if you get just enough of that, then I think I'm Still Here is going to do it. So I'm going with that scenario, and I'm Still Here wins for international feature. For documentary feature, I thought back on it, and I've had no other land kind of since the beginning. I'm switching. I'm going to Porcelain War. It won at DGA. It's a movie that is about the Ukraine war and everything. It's genuinely one of the things, having not seen it myself, that I've heard others talk about is that it's more of an entertaining watch than something like No Other Land or Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat. It's more a little more fun. So I'm reminded of films like 20 Feet or 30 Feet from Stardom, whatever the correct title of that one was, which was more, again, a fun documentary. It was about a more joyful topic. You got Searching for Sugar Man. Arguably was a little bit more of an entertaining topic than some of the nominees that film was up against that particular year. So when you have that, I think, again, you have just enough people that are passionate in a category like Doc Feature, which, again, you're going to get some Oscar voters, sometimes in chunks, that abstain and don't vote in the category. You get just enough passion there, then something like Porcelain War can come through and win. So I am picking Porcelain War for that category. For animated feature, I'm sticking with The Wild Robot. I think the win by Wallace and Gromit at BAFTA, again, that was a winner that helped The Wild Robot and hurt Flow more than anything else. Flow, I think if it had won at BAFTA, it would have showed that some of those international voters that do cross over to the Oscars, they're also behind the movie the same way that, again, we don't see significant overlap, but the same way that, Golden Globe voters, there were just enough international voters there that I think were comfortable enough with Flow and liked it more than The Wild Robot that they gave it to that film. And it doesn't, again, the Annie Awards, not a lot of crossover for voters there. I don't think there's, hardly any. So even though, yes, the Annie Awards did award The Wild Robot significantly, and while that was in the heat of voting, it was actually, I believe, the same night as PGA and DGA. That all being said, I still looked at it and I'm like, well, there's also that little superstitious thing with the Annie Awards every other year, because since Klaus, or no, the year before, I think since the first Spider-Man animated film, which was Into the Spider-Verse, since then, Annies have been on an every other year tack where it's like, yep, they'll get it right one year and then they'll get it wrong the next year and so on and so forth. So that this is an on year, so I think you got to go with The Wild Robot. Plus, again, I've pointed out a couple times, The Wild Robot is nominated in more categories than Flow. Yes, Flow is up for international feature as well, but The Wild Robot got the sound nomination and the score nomination on top of it. I think it's more widely seen, and I think it's going to have enough support to beat out Flow. All right, now on to the screenplay categories. Adapted screenplay, one of the easiest categories of the night. Just go with Conclave, don't overthink it. Nickel Boys, yes, does have some passion from its win at the Writers Guild, where Conclave was ineligible. If it had gone up against Conclave there, it would have been more, I think, 50-50 as far as who won. Now, I did read there were quite a few people, I think it was Variety's kind of recap of the voters they talked to. There were passionate votes for Nickel Boys here. But, and it did get the picture nomination, which again, sorry, I got a hair in my mouth, get rid of that. Getting that picture nomination, yes, does show that, yeah, there is passion for the movie. It does show that it's not just, a screenplay-only nominee like some of us were thinking. So, yeah, that being said, though, I think Conclave, I think because of its status now in Best Picture and everything, it is kind of playing the spoiler right now. I think it will win for its adapted screenplay. Original screenplay, I'm sticking with Anora here. I'm not doing, again, this is a spot where you got to be a little uncomfortable because The Substance is looming. You've got A Real Pain, which just won at BAFTA. That was happening while we had the voting still going on. The Substance was still, that won at Critics' Choice while voting was in full swing. So, for what that's worth. But the problem I have with The Substance is, okay, yes, it won at Critics' Choice. Then it couldn't follow up with a BAFTA win. Instead, they go a little more off the board with A Real Pain, which is something that, very, 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 very few people were predicting to win at BAFTA. And while, yes, A Real Pain did get the nomination for Kieran Culkin, and he's very likely to win in supporting actor, the fact that this one actually did not come through for Best Picture does show that, yes, there are people that are liking the movie, there are people that like the performances and stuff, but I don't think there's enough groundswell love for this movie that it is going to upset Anora. So I'm going to go with Anora to win for original screenplay. Into the acting races now. Supporting actress, Zoe Saldana. Again, don't overthink it. Just go with Zoe. She's won everywhere. Even with Emilia Perez's controversies and stuff, a lot of them are behind the film now. Now that voting is over, we've heard Carlos Sofia Gascon will be at the ceremony as well. Again, I would just say pick Zoe. She's really shown no weakness, and there's not really, again, a clear number two to take her down. For supporting actor, Kieran Culkin, Real Pain. One of the, probably the, arguably the easiest of the acting categories. I really don't sense, again, that anyone is going to steal the thunder from Kieran, especially after winning BAFTA and stuff, where he was a little more vulnerable there. There was a chance that he was going to lose to someone like a Guy Pearce or maybe Edward Norton, but nope, the fact that he's, again, swept the entire awards season and everything here for the televised awards, even if he wasn't there in person, it didn't affect anything with him. So, yep, go ahead and stick with Kieran for supporting actor. Best actress. Boy, after hearing a couple things here and there, I was almost tempted to say, you know what, let's go with a crazy off-the-board pick, and let's go with Fernanda Torres to win. But I restrained myself just enough here because I do think Demi Moore is the one who is going to win. It's a close one because Mikey Madison with the BAFTA win, that was significant. That kept her in the discussion for sure. Fernanda Torres with that Globe win, and everything. And getting the picture nomination, really, really helps get her movie seen. There were a few people, again, I think it was the Variety article cited that after the nominations were out, that a lot of voters who had not seen I'm Still Here up to that point then went back and saw it because, it made the top 10, it made it in for Best Picture, I should probably see it. So that means with more visibility that Fernanda probably actually stands a better chance than it would normally seem on paper when, yes, she missed BAFTA. Yes, she missed SAG. Yes, she missed at Critics' Choice. That is all true. On paper, yes, Fernanda Torres would normally be a 4th or maybe a 5th place pick in this race. But no, I think she's a very, very solid 3rd, and she's really, really actually in a position where she's got a chance to pull a massive, massive upset here. But again, Demi Moore, I think you got to go advantage her with the SAG win, even though, yes, that did happen after voting had closed. She'd also won at Critics' Choice while voting was in swing. Mikey's win, I don't know if that's enough to sway enough voters in the last 2 days before voting closed to go away from someone like a Demi Moore or go away from a Fernanda Torres or possibly a Cynthia Erivo. I'm not sure, but I'll tell you what, again, if Mikey does win this and Honora wins this and it wins editing, it could almost go full sweep mode and all of a sudden be, winning 5 of 6 nominations. But I think Demi Moore in the substance, it's a performance that's more in line to win based off of what has happened before. So I got to go with Demi Moore for the win. For Best Actor, Adrien Brody for The Brutalist. Again, I'm not overthinking this one. Timothée Chalamet, SAG win. I had it predicted pretty much maybe a week after the SAG nominations were out. I looked at it, I'm like, yep, Timmy, as his friends call him, he's probably going to win SAG, and he did. And boy, I have to admit, I'm a little surprised at the amount, not only the amount of shock that a lot of industry insiders had at that, but also just the bait and switch that a lot of people have gone for picking Timothée Chalamet. Now, that being said, do I think it's silly to pick him? It's not silly. The odds really don't favor it because, again, it's a significant win that happened after voting had closed. If Timothée Chalamet was that far in competition where he could take out Adrien Brody, I think we would have seen him win at something like a BAFTA or something like that. I think that would have been a more, significant deal. Yeah, and we've also seen, like, a complete unknown also got shut out at BAFTA, got shut out at Critics' Choice, got shut out at the Globes. It was its only major win up to that point, on a televised show, was the Best Actor win for Timothée Chalamet. It's not like The Brutalist, which for the most part takes at least one award along for the ride everywhere it goes. Almost everywhere, The Brutalist had at least one win. Obviously, SAG being the exception there, because it was only had the one nomination for Adrien Brody. Yeah, and I don't really sense that someone like a Ralph Fiennes is going to come in there and steal this. I think, again, if something like that was going to happen, he would have had to have won BAFTA, and that did not happen. So there you go. Best Director. This one, I have to admit, I talked about it on Sunday, and I said, I think I might switch back to Brady Corbett. About 5 minutes after I shut the video down, I'm like, fuck it, no, Sean Baker still got this. I think the DGA win is what's really, really, really keeping me from picking Brady Corbett. That was a place that if The Brutalist was going to, have this category to itself, it was absolutely going to win. That was a place it had to win. it had to win. Now, the Critics' Choice, losing to John M. Chu there, yeah, that was, not great. But as long as The Brutalist rebounded the next day at DGA and won at least that, it could afford to lose PGA and still be, in a position where it's like, yeah, it'll probably still win a few top of the, above the line categories. But yeah, then losing at DGA, that was significant. That was like, oh boy, that's like, I don't know. So, yeah, I bounced back and forth on this, and I decided to go since then. And I was like, yeah, I could see myself picking Brady. I could see myself just in the last second switching to that before we go live today here. But no, I am sticking with Sean Baker here. I think it's a spot where that DGA win was significant, and yeah, I think it's more with this. Again, we talked about it a little bit after the DGA win. I think it's a thing where Anora is a movie that generally the Oscars could end up awarding more because, it's maybe going to win Best Picture. Maybe it's going to win Screenplay. Maybe it's going to win Actress and Editing. The Brutalist, yeah, you've got a couple tech nominations that it's probably going to win. And Adrian Brody, we feel, is probably in that, 85 to 90% range secure for Best Actor. Some may disagree. But, that's also its places to win. And it's also, Sean is someone who's been around the industry, and even though he's not, extremely old by any means, he's not like a director who's been around for 30, 40, 50 years. He is somebody that I think has made more buzz with his movies in the past than somebody like Brady, which is, this is kind of his more or less his coming out party as a director compared to some of his other efforts, where Sean Baker, it's like, yep, the Florida Project was kind of in play for more than just Willem Dafoe for a while there. Yeah, and everything. So it's like, yeah, his other films, have gotten notices and stuff. So I think, yeah, I think back on it, I'm like, yeah, that DGA win is enough to push me back over the edge to go to Anora winning for director. So for Best Picture, I'm going to pull up, I got a couple stats things here that I looked at, because I was like, what do we think? I'm thinking back to the times that, we could see a couple different scenarios happening, because Best Picture, I think the best case scenario for Anora, we talked about it a little bit there, it's a near sweep. It's picture, it's director, it's actress, it's screenplay, it's editing. The worst case, as we saw at the Golden Globes and as we saw at SAG, shutout. There is a chance that it loses screenplay. Maybe Brady comes back and wins director. Maybe we've got Conclave, or even potentially at that point The Brutalist, winning in Best Picture, and Mikey Madison loses out in Best Actress, and we know Honora Borisov, he's probably not going to win Supporting Actor. So, yeah, then that takes out all of its potential wins. Conclave, on the other hand, I looked at it, best case scenario, I was like, okay, it can win picture, it can win screenplay, and it'll probably win editing. What else can it win? And the answer is not much. It's obviously not up for director. It's not really looking great in the acting categories. The design categories, it's not going to score in. So worst case is screenplay only. I don't really see that one getting shut out. And yeah, so I was looking at it. I'm like, okay, if Anora were to lose Best Picture but still pick up Best Director and Best Screenplay, has that happened before? And the answer is yes. That's happened hold on. Let me make sure I'm counting right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's happened 9 times. I went through Brokeback Mountain, The Pianist, Traffic, A Place in the Sun, A Letter to Three Wives, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, The Informer, Bad Girl, and Seventh Heaven, if you go all the way back to the first Oscars. So it's happened 9 times. There's also a scenario, what if Anora wins Best Director, Mikey Madison comes back to win Best Actress, and it wins Screenplay, but still loses Best Picture? Has that ever happened before? Yes, it's happened once. Seventh Heaven. Again, go back to the first Oscars. Otherwise, okay, let's say it loses Best Picture, but it still wins Best Director and Best Editing. Has that happened before? Yes, that's happened 6 times. You've got Gravity, Traffic, Saving Private Ryan, Born on the 4th of July, Cabaret, and A Place in the Sun, all winning those. And that's also, by the way, if it loses Screenplay. I think we talked about that. or actually no, these are just, sorry, let me rephrase. That's strictly if you won Best Director and Editing. Other categories it didn't matter in. Now, when we talk about, this is the spot I was going to talk about. If you win Screenplay, you win Director, and you win Editing, and you ultimately lose Best Picture. Has that happened before? It's happened twice, with Traffic and A Place in the Sun. Another scenario for Anora is, what if you win Best Director and Best Actress, and then lose Best Picture? That's happened 3 times. Seventh Heaven, which you mentioned before, Cabaret, and La La Land, actually, just did it a few years ago. And has there ever been a movie that won Best Director, won Best Actress, and Best Editing, and then lost Best Picture? That's only happened once with Cabaret. So, so I was looking through, I'm like, okay, which of these scenarios, are these scenarios optimal? Are they possible for Anora? This is kind of where I started. And then I looked at, okay, the inverse, which is, this is more in favor of Conclave if it were to win. Films that win Best Picture, win Film Editing, and then lose Director. You got Argo, Crash, Chicago, In the Heat of the Night, and Around the World in 80 Days. That's happened 5 times. How about if you add, you win Best Picture and Film Editing? Let's say you add Screenplay to the list. Has that happened before? It's happened 4 times with Argo, Crash, In the Heat of the Night, and Around the World in 80 Days. You really just, you take Chicago off that list. Because that did not win for its screenplay that year. So I look at all that and I'm like, you know what? This is kind of complicated. And I went back and forth. I'm like, because again, off Sunday night, I'm, kind of in the Conclave bag. I'm like, I think it's going to win. And then I looked and I was like, well, let's think about one thing though. It's one thing that I mentioned Sunday night that I'm like, I was still a little, it's a little troubling that this didn't happen. If Conclave wins SAG and wins BAFTA, on a preferential ballot, how come it couldn't beat out Anora there? If it could beat out Anora at BAFTA and it can beat out Anora at SAG. And it made me think, when was the last time that we had a Best Picture race that was decided arguably by which film did best on a preferential ballot leading up to the Oscars? And I know some people are going to cringe at this, but think Green Book. Green Book won at the Globes, won PGA, and then was pretty quiet, came back to win Best Picture at the Oscars. And I know that's not optimal. I know that's, a lot of people are like, ooh, no, but it's true. It turned out to be true that year. And I looked at it, I'm like, well, this year, it's not an exact comp, obviously, but Green Book suffered some controversies, kind of came back, and everything. It's maybe not a controversy for Anora, but think about it. Getting shut out at the Globes and shut out at SAG, that's still not great positive word of mouth for your film. Not really. So I thought about it. I'm like, well, if we look at it, though, I think the equivalent is you got to go with the film that did well on the preferential ballot. And that happened to be Anora. And I looked at it and I'm like, you know what? That kind of makes sense. And we're kind of overdue. I didn't do a list on this, but movies that win Best Director, Screenplay, and Best Picture only, Midnight Cowboy did it back in the late 60s. Let me think back here. If it only wins those 3, I don't think that's happened way too often. Some people pointed out, it's like, well, if Anora happens to lose Best Actress and it loses Screenplay, but it still wins Director, still wins Picture, and still wins Editing, those are the same 3 that Rocky got in 1976. So, we've seen some precedent for a couple of these different scenarios. Again, it would have to beat some of these curses of movies like The Pianist and Brokeback Mountain and, Letter to Three Wives and some of these, when it's like, okay, yeah, you can win Director and Screenplay, but then lose Best Picture. So it's a close call, and I really, again, I was kind of up to even this morning. I was probably in the conclave camp, but I got to call it with with one other factor, and this is something that, again, some people pointed out. It's like, don't always worry about what happens down the stretch, because down the stretch, traditionally, let's not forget, that's not always where all your Oscar voting happens. So down the stretch is when Conclave won BAFTA, and it was after voting was over that it won at SAG. While voting was in the mix, and while it was actively going for everyone, and while I'm sure plenty of ballots were being filled out, what film was ahead? Anora. It had just won PGA. It had just won DGA. It had just won at Critics' Choice. And one other thing, let's not forget here too, Anora, let's not forget, it's a movie that also has shown this year, in a weird year, that you can win Best Picture and nothing else, and it can be okay, like it did at Critics' Choice. So I don't quite see that scenario happening here at the Oscars. I don't see it pulling a complete Grand Hotel where it wins Best Picture and nothing else. That would only be the second time in almost 100 years of Oscar history that has happened. Yeah, and obviously it's not going to be an exact parallel because Grand Hotel famously only nominated for Best Picture, had no other support from any other category. That's a rare. I don't think we're ever going to see that feat happen ever again. That's very, very difficult to pull off. So, yeah. So at the end of the day, I think Anora with 3 wins for its screenplay, its director, and Best Picture, also lining up with a little bit of the theory of the Birdman theory, where it's like, yeah, you've got potential. You can throw the substance a bone in screenplay. You can throw Brady Corbet a bone in director, and then still give Anora Best Picture, and then everyone goes home happy except for Edward Berger. But he's not nominated anywhere, so he technically doesn't really get a chance anyways. And Conclave will, again, probably very, very, very likely win for its adapted screenplay. So that film still goes home with a prize as well. And a lot of us had that thinking in 2014 or 2015, and it didn't really pan out the best for all of them. 2015, though, you had The Big Short did win screenplay. You did have Alejandro Iñárritu win for director, and you had Spotlight win for picture. That's a case where they did spread the love a little bit more. But Birdman, nope, that's one that swept all the various categories where they could have awarded it to the various other big contenders that year. So, yep, and then Everything Everywhere All at Once, kind of the same deal in 2022. It's like Banshees, that kind of felt like one of the top 3 films, went home empty-handed. The Fabelmans, arguably second or third, that went home empty-handed. Everything Everywhere All at Once kind of dominated. So, yep. There you go. Yep, I think Anora wins 3 and Wicked wins 3. Those are your 2 most awarded films of the night. Otherwise, Brutalist I also have down for 3. That's true, yeah. So a 3-way tie for most. There you go. Otherwise, yeah, Conclave I have winning a pair. Substance I have winning a pair. Let's see here. Amelia Perez. I also have that winning 2 categories. Anything else I have winning multiple? I don't think so. No. There is potential, for Dune. If Dune wins a couple of the tech categories, that could win too. Amelia Perez, if it picks up international feature, that could win its 3rd. I think it's going to be, unless Anora picks up editing, or if it does pick up Best Actress, I think it's going to be hard for Anora to top 3, though, after that. I don't quite see the full sweep happening. It hasn't, again, it's not in a spot like Everything Everywhere All at Once was a couple years ago, where it's like it had PGA, it had DGA, it had SAG, it had the Golden Globes, or sorry, not the Golden Globes, it had the Critics' Choice. BAFTA was kind of the weird outlier that year, and it didn't happen to not do as well at the Golden Globes. And obviously it's not Oppenheimer, which won basically all those. So, it's not in that mode, even though, yes, it felt like it was potentially a couple weeks ago when it won both PGA and DGA the same night. Since then, yep, we've seen Conclave show its strength at BAFTA and at SAG. We've seen it, get shut out at SAG. We've seen, a little bit of debate start to happen with everything there. But, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the way I have it going down, at least. But, yeah, there could be potentially some Oscar history here. We could see Anora added to a couple of those lists that I mentioned there, like, movies that lose Best Picture but still win a few of the other categories. It could be added to that list very easily. And Conclave, that could also end up on the list of movies that win Best Picture, film editing, screenplay, and then lose or were not nominated for Best Director. So it's either way. I think both those movies, I think, have a chance to make some history here. So, okay, again, that's my final answer, Regis. That's where I'm going with these categories. I don't want to overthink it anymore. I don't want to last second switch to someone else. I don't want to do all that, because again, at this point, even if you do have some of your beat writers out there that talk to more Oscar voters and they're like, oh, everywhere I'm hearing this, and it's something that's kind of contrary to what the the populace pick is, or what the general consensus is, if there is a general consensus amongst some of these categories. Even then, those switches are still very, very dangerous. It's really, unless you're out on a limb and you're really like, I want to pick this, it's mine, unless you switch from that and it's like a very, very unlikely scenario, then, okay, maybe sometimes those work out. But, yeah. All right. I think that's all I got for today. We will, obviously, we'll be back Sunday night after the show is over, and we'll talk about how we did. We'll probably talk a little bit more about what's coming up for the channel here, because, again, I've got a video series that, boy, I'm really, really hoping here in the next few weeks I can get ramped back up on that again, because we're almost 3/4 of the way done with it, more or less. I don't know. I don't want to say it's hard to judge, because it's like, okay, it's again right now planned to be a 5-part video series, but the thing the video I'm working on right now, the 4th part of that series, has just been a complete pain in the ass a couple times. I've had to switch computers, and I've had to hard drives where I've stored a lot of these clips. Those have just completely died on me, so it's kind of been a cursed video. I haven't, been able to touch it here for a couple of weeks. So, yeah, as long as, if it doesn't give me any more trouble, then, I'll be able to keep going with it, get that one done, and then it's a complete 5-video set. If it keeps giving me trouble here in the next couple of weeks after the Oscars are over, I'm going to have to scrap that one and just shorten it down to 4 videos, just re-edit a few things here and there, take out a couple phrases here and there or whatever, just so it makes sense, and then and then just release it as a 4-part series. But it's going to be different enough. It's not going to be exactly the same style, of course, but subject matter will be kind of similar. And I'm on the fence here. So if you guys would like to, if you'd like to see a little preview of what this series is going to be, then you can let me know. And if I get enough people that say, oh, I actually am really interested to see what this is, I want to see like a 20, 30-second preview, maybe a little longer. We'll see. Because the first 3 videos are done. The first 3 videos are set. Everything's queued up. The sound's good. The videos are good. Everything's good to go on them. I uploaded one of them to YouTube for half a second this a few months ago, and it didn't get flagged for anything. I'll probably try that out on the other 2 here sometime soon, just to make sure it doesn't, make sure that doesn't happen on a later one for some reason. But yeah, if you're interested to see what it could be, let me know. And it might be, a short delay, but maybe Sunday night after the Oscars are over. Maybe I'll, edit in a little preview of what that video series is going to be. So, yeah, so that's what I got for now. So, like I said, if you're interested in it, you want to hear more about it, or you want to see a little, again, 20, 30, maybe 40-second clip of, previewing what the series is going to be about, then by all means, please let me know, and I'll, before Sunday, I will obviously, make a decision and hopefully be ready to edit that into the video after we get it shot and everything. So, all right, that's enough from me.